Donald Trump held his first rally this weekend since the FBI's extraordinary search of his home at Mar-a-Lago. He traveled to Pennsylvania campaigning for Republican Senate candidate Dr. Mehmet Oz and the nominee for governor, Doug Mastriano, a guy who was at the Capitol on January 6th. But the most notable speaker of the evening ended up being a woman named Cynthia Hughes, the leader of a support group for insurrectionists who've been charged for attacking the Capitol on January 6th.
I'm the founder of the Patriot Freedom Project, a foundation started after the arrest of my nephew, who has been languishing behind the walls of a D.C. jail almost 2 years for his participation in the January 6th rally. He committed no acts of violence, and he assaulted no one that day. He went to the nation's capital to hear his president speak. He dressed in a suit and tie and his favorite hat. Tim wanted to take part in what he thought was going to be a historical event. Instead, he witnessed a horror show.
Sounds like a guy who's just there exercising First Amendment rights, kind of swept up in the whole thing. What Cynthia Hughes failed to mention is that the man she calls her nephew is allegedly a Nazi sympathizer. Now, that may seem strong language, but this is a picture of Timothy Hale Cuccinelli, proudly sporting a Hitler mustache, in photos revealed by prosecutors in a court filing. And according to prosecutors, he often espoused anti-Semitic views, once telling a coworker, and I quote, "Hitler should have finished the job." In court, Hale Cuccinelli testified his comments were ironic, that he never, quote, really thought it was true. In May, Hale Cuccinelli was convicted on all 5 charges he faced, included obstructing an official proceeding, which is a felony. He is set to be sentenced later this month. And these comments from Timothy's self-described aunt come just days after President Joe Biden faced a lot of criticism for referring to the MAGA philosophy as, quote, semi-fascism. Well, call me crazy, but I don't think there's anything semi about rocking a Hitler mustache, espousing far-right views, and then taking part in an attempted coup against the democratically elected government. It's shocking. This man, the one whose picture you see there, was celebrated as a political prisoner of conscience at a rally led by the former president and leader of the Republican Party and attended by the Republican candidates for Senate and governor of Pennsylvania. NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley has been following all the January 6 cases, and he joins me now. And Ryan, you were the first one, because you've been covering the cases so closely, that alerted to me as I was following your reporting that this was the individual. I had seen the picture, of course. Tell me more about this individual's case.
Yeah, so Hale Cuccinelli was convicted by a jury, and what was remarkable to me about this case is it was overseen by Judge McFadden, who decided that after he was convicted that he would be willing to give an extended sentence or a longer sentence to Hale Cuccinelli because he found his testimony, quote, highly dubious. This is an individual with a very long record of essentially fascist-like views here. He was actually arrested back in 2010, believe it or not, for having a potato gun with a bunch of his friends that had the phrase "white is right" on it. He had this right-wing podcast, and actually he had exchanges with that aunt, that woman that he refers to as his aunt, in which he used anti-Jewish slurs in his text messages to this aunt. So she's not unaware of his views and his pretty deplorable views that were clear to all of his colleagues who were interviewed. And I think, over dozens of his colleagues were interviewed and expressed their I think, frustration with some of the views that this individual had expressed at their job, Chris.
I'm sorry, rewind that for a second. You say that there's evidence that he used anti-Jewish slurs in text messages with the woman who was speaking about the plight of her poor nephew at that rally?
That's right. Yes. And those messages came out in the court documents. And, there are a lot of frustrations even amongst, the January 6th community, as they refer to themselves, about this guy sort of being the poster boy. There's a lot of controversy. NPR has done some great reporting about how this money is actually being allocated and used. And there's a lot of controversy within that community. I was speaking with someone in that community today who was very upset that, that this is essentially the poster boy for this. It's just odd for him to be the person you're going going to point to say that there's overreach here. It's just a very poorly chosen poster boy for this. You know, you would expect them to go with somebody who's much more run of the mill, you know, maybe a grandmother or something you throw it in there. But, you know, in reality, they don't have those cases to look at because there was this grandmother today who there's a lot of blowback on the right about that case being brought forward. And lo and behold, she got a sentence of probation. She didn't actually end up serving any jail time, even though DOJ went for 2 weeks or 14 days in that case. So there's not a lot of people you can point to who are still locked up. You can say, oh, this person's being overheld because their cases have been examined so closely, and everyone who's still being held really is been determined to be a danger to the public going forward, Chris.